And now on the Business RadioX network, another exciting episode with Jamie Overturf in Connecting Tucson with Jamie.
Hello, and welcome to Connecting Tucson with Jamie Overturf, broadcasting from Tucson Business RadioX, situated in the Stewart Title corporate offices on Broadway. Connecting Tucson is all about connecting our community, local businesses, and organizations to help our community grow and thrive. Today we have a very special guest in the studio, James Lorentzen, co-owner of Pedego Electric Bikes Tucson and Mount Lemon. James grew up in the Twin Cities area and attended the University of North Dakota. He had been active in the aerospace industry for over 25 years, including aircraft sales, avionics, component and maintenance sales, and marketing in the corporate defense and airlines transport aviation markets. In 2017, James re-engineered his career path into a passion of his, biking, and found the store opportunity with Pedego Electric Bikes. Since January 2018, he's never looked back, and I think he's happier for it. Welcome so much, James, and thank you for coming on Connecting Tucson.
Well, thanks for having me, Jamie. It's my pleasure, and it's not every day that you get to do a podcast, so it's going to be fun.
I hope it will be fun. Painless for sure, but I hope fun as well. So, James, why don't we just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you did prior to owning your own business?
Well, I grew up as an athlete. I was always playing baseball, football. As a kid, back growing up in the 70s, you're always on a bike. We rode bikes all over the neighborhood. We even had a bike club when I was in 7th grade with two other friends of mine. And so back in those days, and Mark may remember this, but, basically your parents just let you go pretty much anywhere on a bike. And one time we said, hey, we'd like to get a ride down to the par 3 golf course. They said, well, you guys have a bike, go ahead and do it. So we towed our golf clubs on a 2-wheel, club and towed them down behind her bike to go golfing. And we did everything on bikes. But after I got out of college, played college football and I was always an athlete and got into the aviation field and was fairly successful, having a lot of fun, and got to the point in 2017 I was between opportunities, and this just happened to come up, and so I re-engineered my career. So one of my other passions besides biking was playing golf, skiing. I grew up in the upper Midwest in Minnesota, and got the ski bug when I went out to Utah after college, and I always envied people that had a profession that they could do as, a passion that they could do as a profession and be paid for it. And now
you've got it.
Yeah. And so now I'm doing what I would typically do if I wasn't in a job anyway.
Oh, that is so great. I can tell you, kids today will never understand hopping on your bike and heading down to that store to buy that piece of candy for 5 cents. I don't know, but I loved it. It was one of my favorite things to do. And I grew up in Maine, so we had to ride our bikes everywhere. Nowadays, they can just walk down the street and, be close to somewhere. So
exactly.
Yes, I know exactly what that. So what is Pedego?
Pedego is we're a brand that's been around about 13 years, according to a marketing company called Navigant Research. We lead the industry here in the United States in the number of units of e-bikes sold in the U.S. So we're a brand that's been out there since 2008.
Wow.
With 18 different models of e-bikes, and that's all we do is electric bikes. And jumped into the market early with our co-founders and started building the brand. And for the last about 9 years, they've had this single same brand store, and the Pedego name is attached to all the licensed dealers. And that's all we sell, and that's all we market and rent and do tours with is the Pedego brand. So Pedego itself is a word that came from pedestrians go.
Oh, I was going to ask where that came from. So pedestrians go.
Yeah.
Nice.
So pedestrians go on electric bike, and our CEO and co-founder, Don DiCostanzo, he's a brilliant marketing guy. He's got a degree in marketing, but his early career was in the automobile publishing business. So he too is reinventing himself when he started Pedego Bikes back in 2008.
Oh, that's just a phenomenal story. So I know what an electric bike is, but what exactly is an electric bike? Can you walk us through what that is?
Yeah, well, it was 3 short years ago when I hadn't even been on an electric bike myself, and I've been a road biker for 18, 19 years. And well, what it is basically a regular bike, a good quality bike that has a motor, and there's a couple different places you could put that motor, but you also have a battery, and the lithium ion battery technology, which kind of came around back in 2006, 2007, allowed this type of market to build a bike that had a battery power system with a motor that would allow you to pedal a bike like a regular bike, but just have assistance when you needed help. So most of the Pedego bikes have 5 levels of pedal assist. So while you pedal, you get assistance from the motor. And most people have a difficult time when they get to hills or maybe the last half of their trip, or they're going against the wind. And it causes people to keep their bike in their garage when they're working too hard on a bike. So it allows biking to be more easier, more pleasurable, and really more fun. And that's really what we're all about. Our tagline at Pedego is hella fun. And so people, they actually ride longer because they're having fun, and they ride more often. They just don't pull their bike out once every week or two. They're on their bike either every day or every other day, it seems like.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. But I've also seen, and maybe this is not the same type of bike, but I've seen these bikes going down the road, and they're like gasoline. That's not the same thing, right? There's another type of bike out there that has like a gas motor on it. This is not what you have.
That's correct. Yeah. So those are gasoline-powered bikes. You see those in various places, and this is, they're noisy, they're stinky and smelly, but most people wouldn't be able to even hear an electric bike motor. And unless you have a trained eye to see the battery system, most people wouldn't even recognize it from the battery either. So it just looks like a regular bike.
And that allows you to maybe go back into nature and see some of those trails that you might not have been able to see, maybe, possibly, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah. People, and so many times people are on an e-bike for the first time when they come to the store, and we try to get them out in the parking lot within the first couple minutes. And to see that smile in their face, it brings them back to when they were 10 years old again. There's something about being on a bike that causes you to smile and causes you to feel like you've got freedom, you've got transportation, you can be out in nature and feel the wind going through your hair, and it's just really, really fun.
Oh, yes, I know. I used to do a mountain biking, but then was in a car accident. So this actually might be a very good transition for me, because I can't do the hills, and like my husband can. So that might be something for me to look into.
Exactly, yeah.
So now, in January of 2018, you were actually awarded a top 10 quality dealer. How did that happen? Tell us a little about that.
Well, right before we opened in 2017, actually it was January 2018. We had gone to the actually a worldwide dealer conference, and I told my partner, my wife, because she's co-owner with me, I said, you know what? Our goal next year is to be a top 10 dealer in our first year. And so it took until last year to get to that point. And we have well over 100 Pedego dealers nationwide now. And so we got down to the 10th announcement, and it was Pedego Tucson. So we breathed a sigh of relief. We were so happy. When you have a goal out there and you want to be the best of the best, and you reach that. And also in terms of revenue, we are also a top 10 dealer. So we're a very successful store within the Pedego line. So we're just really happy. In 2 years, we became one of their top dealers, and we're just really proud of that.
Wow, you should be so proud of yourself. That is a major accomplishment in a year to become one of the top 10 dealers in the U.S. So that is great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love it. So I took a look at your website, and I never actually knew there were so many different types of e-bikes, is how you call them. And you said there were 18. Why are there so many, and what are the differences between them?
Well, when the company started in 2008, they came out with their Comfort Cruiser. And the office is, the main headquarters is in Fountain Valley, just inland from Huntington Beach. And so that's beach cruiser territory. And our co-founder had him and his partner just scratched out on a napkin, literally, the first e-bike model, and it was the Comfort Cruiser. It was a cruiser bike. It probably looked like the old 70s Schwinn beach cruiser, which it does. And it has a motor in the rear hub, and the battery was mounted behind the seat. And it's simply a twist and go throttle. So it's in the early days, we didn't have pedal assist. And so it was the first bike. We still are servicing 9, 10-year-old Comfort Cruisers, but we're also selling and even renting Comfort Cruisers to this day. It's an easy bike to use. It's basically a 7-speed cruiser bike. Whenever you need to use some power from the motor going up hills or into the wind, you just twist the throttle and go. So each year since 2008, there seemed to be 1 or 2 new models that would be added to the lineup. And they built another cruiser-style bike called the Interceptor, which has pedal assist as well as throttle. So it's a Class 2 bike, a Class 2 e-bike. So you're less than 20 miles per hour on the top speed. And we have a 500-watt motor, and we have pedal assist as well as throttle override. And so that makes it a Class 2 bike. And so a little bit more complexity going on with the processor, but it's basically a cruiser bike as well. But now we have a city commuter. We have a really super low step through called the Boomerang because the shape of the frame looks like a boomerang.
Oh, cool.
And between those 3 models, it's probably 80% of what we sell at Pedego Tucson. But we also have a cargo bike called the Stretch and take 400 pounds of people or cargo. We have one of the world's only electric tandem bikes. We've got a folding bike we call the Latch. We've got 3 different off-road bikes. We have a fat tire bike called Trail Tracker. We have a hardtail mountain bike called the Ridge Rider. And just 2 years ago, one of the most recent bikes that came out of our designs was a full suspension mountain bike that can take on any trail up on Mount Lemmon.
Ooh, that sounds like a lot of fun right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you add up that whole thing, and as the years have gone by, we can take a family that has a couple of kids. We can take grandpa and grandma and put them on bikes. In fact, one of our guys that does a lot of work for us pitching our product is William Shatner the last couple of years.
Wow.
And he's 87 years old. And since 2012, he and his wife have owned Pedegos themselves. And then they start talking to the company about being their pitch man for them. But now he's got 16 people within his family, 3 generations of people riding Pedegos. And he makes a point for his whole family to go out to Huntington Beach once a month with all 3 generations on Pedego bikes. And Jamie, I don't know of another event or sport or anything that you could do with 3 generations of people all going the same speed and having the same level of fun.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there's different class. How many different classes of e-bikes are there? Just 2?
Well, there's been a 3-class system that People for Bikes, along with some of the motor manufacturers, came out with a few years ago. And Class 1 bikes are Class 1 and 2 have a top speed limit of 20 miles per hour.
Okay.
Class 1 bikes are pedal assist only. So you can only get the motor to assist you while you pedal the bike.
Oh, got it. Okay, so you can't go as fast maybe?
Well, no, they just don't have a throttle. So Class 2 bikes,
okay.
Class 2 e-bikes have pedal assist as well as a throttle override.
Got
And
it.
the Class 3 bikes are go beyond 20 miles per hour to a top speed of 28 under pedal assist power.
Okay.
So we're going to have our first Class 3 bike come out in the next couple of months. But
I'm excited.
People for Bikes kind of came out with that 3-class system and a preferred language for legislation, so all the states could come up with, standardized type of rules and regulations for their local roads and trail systems. And to this day now, there's been 26 states, including Arizona, that have adopted the 3-class e-bike system.
That is super interesting, and thank you for letting me know that, because I didn't even know there was classes of e-bikes. I just was thought, hey, it's an electric bike. So how do you help someone who comes into your shop and they're like, hey, I'm shopping for an e-bike? How do you help them fit the bike that works best for their needs? Do you have a process?
Yeah, we do. It's we're a little bit different at Pedego, because the most important thing about the whole process isn't the bike at all. It's the person and it's the customer. And so we focus in on the customer, what they want to do, and what kind of experiences they want to live. So, we'll ask them a series of questions about how many times they want to ride. What do they envision the type of riding that they're going to do? There's basically recreational riding. There's also commuting. But when they ride, are they going to be riding on the streets? Are there going to be, multi-use paths?
Well, that makes
do
sense.
they plan on going to the store with their bike? Do they plan on going to the library? They're going to be out at night with their bike. But one of the key things that we have, because our basic demographic that we that people really like our bikes is baby boomers.
Oh.
And as they get older, I always ask them, do you have any ankle, knee, hip, heart, or lung issues that I should know about? Because we have different types of bikes that are going to be fitted for people with issues in any of those areas. And so once I understand, what kind of physical needs they have and limitations and what type of riding they're going to do, there's a couple, 3 models that pop into our minds.
Okay.
Whether it's my wife or our mechanic, we'll take people outside with a couple, 3 different bikes, and people always want to shop. They don't want to be sold a bike. So we'll have a couple, 3 bikes, and once we get them on the first bike, we pull out a second and a third bike, and then they pick. They're the ones that are going to be riding the bikes, and we give them the ability to shop and pick the one that's best for them.
Well, that's wonderful. So you're not really forcing it. You're letting them make their own decision and what's best for them, but you're helping to guide that decision. So
Absolutely. But I tell you, there's many people that hadn't been biking in not just a couple of years, but it may have been a couple decades. People literally say, James, I haven't been on a bike since I was
16.
Yeah. My record so far is 65 years between bike rides. We had a gal that was 75 that came in for a ride, and she said, I haven't been on a bike since I was 10.
Oh, my.
And so we kind of have to, and for those kinds of people, we have a couple of trainer bikes that we get them out kind of moving on a bike on their own before we get them on an electric bike all at once. But we have many people that are on a bike for the first time in many years out in our parking lot. And to see their face light up, that's really why we're in business,
That's wonderful. And that's got to be an extreme confidence booster. You haven't done something in almost, 60 years, and you're trying to do something again for the first time. It's maybe intimidating, but you find out you can do it. That's just a great story. I'm going to have to get my parents on one of those, too.
And they come in, they roll into from their little ride, and you see the smile on their face. And it's not a forced smile at all. It's the kind of smile that they almost look like a kid again. And they, some of them are giggling. Some of them are screaming out loud as they pedal away. And it's just really a lot of fun. And it's just not the Pedego brand. There's all kinds of electric bikes that are causing people for the first time to have a lot of fun on bikes again, and that's why they
you can't see me, but I'm smiling right now. It's just like a grin from ear to ear. That just makes my heart happy. I don't know what else to say. So what types of products and services do you offer there at your store? Because you mentioned rentals, so tell us a little bit about that side of the business.
Well, it's a four-place business model that works really well. Yeah, think of a stool that is held up with four different legs. One leg is certainly sales, of course, but then there's rentals and tours,
Hmm.
and there's also service. Service is huge in what we do in servicing our customers and our bikes, and also accessories. So between those four different legs of our stool, they all feed on one another, and it's all surrounding the Pedego brand. That's all we have is our own Pedego bikes because
Okay.
we're licensed dealers of Pedego, but we're not a franchise. But I always tell people we're run like a franchise from our main office in Fountain Valley, California. They support us really well,
Oh, that's
uh,
wonderful.
and, uh, and so on the rentals, I'd say 98% of all the 100 plus stores around the country are near strategically a shared use path or a multi-use path where they can go right from the store within a couple blocks onto a multi-use path and ride a bike and not be on the road system. And so that's key. So we're located midway on the Rito, right in St. Philip's Plaza, southeast corner of Campbell and River Road. And
Right,
you
right
can
next to
ride.
that path.
Yeah, so that's really key to be close to a shared use path like that. But we're also doing tours now. We've got a Saguaro National Park East tour for a couple hours, and we've been doing Tucson Urban Experience Tour, which is a half-day tour right from our store. We go into downtown Tucson, past U of A on the way, Fourth Avenue Shops, and we have a professional guide that's been doing bike tours over in Italy, had his own tour company in San Francisco. He's working with us now, and since we just started our second season, our summer season up on Mount Lemon, we're
Hmm.
doing a 2 hour tour of Summer Haven and Mount Lemon on our electric bikes as well.
Oh, I
Um,
bet that is very popular during the summer, especially when people get up there to get to cooler weather.
exactly. Yeah. And so these days, people are looking for experiences. And, rentals are great, but some people really need to be led and they want to be led to a
They don't know where to
professional
go.
tour, an experience. They want to bring their riding gear, uh, something to drink and a sunscreen, and they say, okay, let's go. They want you to take them on a ride, tell them about where you're riding, and and that's great. I mean, that's kind of the way recreation is going these days. Is different experiences for people, and they're willing to go on big adventures, and we can take them that on those with the Pedego e-bike.
Well, that's phenomenal. Now, I know you mentioned that you're nationwide, and currently our nation is going through kind of a global pandemic. As a local business here in Tucson, how have you seen things change since COVID-19?
Well, we didn't know what was going to happen mid-March, and
Mm-hmm.
but if anyone's listening to the news, the media, this is a worldwide phenomena. When people were kept in quarantine for so many weeks, one of the only things they could really do besides go out and walk was to get on a bike. And what's
Wow.
been going on worldwide is all bike shops around the world are setting records that they haven't seen since the early 70s in
Wow.
doing service on old bikes that are getting pulled out of the garage or the attic or new bikes. Um, and it's a phenomenon that's been out there now since, let's say, late March and setting records. You'll go into some stores where they don't have any bikes and they won't have any bikes until the end of August, let's say. And so, I was reading a couple of articles about how in the early 70s, 70 to 73, 74 timeframe was the last big bike boom here in the United States. And I was a kid. I remember the Schwinn name, and I was trying to get a Schwinn varsity when I was in junior high, and I kind of remember that. But I asked my dad the other day. I said, "Dad, you remember the '70s? I mean, do you remember the big bike boom that went on back then?" And he said, "No, I don't really remember that." But all the bike shops, not just nationwide, worldwide, over in Europe, same thing going on, Australia. And so it's one of the silver linings in this whole COVID-19 worldwide
Well, that's great.
pandemic, which there's not a whole lot of silver linings out there, but the bike industry is one of those. So we're just so lucky that we can still stay open. And Arizona was one of the states that had bike shops to be essential transportation for people that were needed to get to work on a bike. They either were existing commuters, or instead of going into transit type operations or being on a bus, getting on a bike,
being close to public, this way they're on a bike.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing more people bike commuting now to get away from people. And so naturally, when you're on a bike, you're social distancing just as a matter of practice anyway, staying away from people. And so it works well in that regard. And then people just want to get outside. They want to, they want to have fun outside. And walking, running, yeah, that's fun. But being on a bike is just so much more fun.
Bike just makes you smile, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're lucky to be able to service that market. And then you look at the bike segment industry, and there's several segments. You divide it up into mountain biking or bike commuting or BMX or what have you. But e-bikes in the U.S. are the fastest growing segment within the biking industry. So we're kind of riding that growth wave that right now that we had a record month just finishing up May, and April was our third best month in the 2.5 years that we've been in business. And we're just wondering, well, is this going to keep going on? And our co-founder and CEO believes it will. And so
that's great.
We'll see.
We will see. Now, many of our consumers may not be ready to venture out, or might not be confident enough to venture out because they might not know some precautions that you're taking, because you do rent your bicycles out. What are some things that you are doing or precautions that you're taking to make sure that your clientele is safe?
Yeah, that's a good question. We really didn't know what to expect at first, but we wear masks 100% of the time in the store. We have masks for other people that if they don't have their own, we'll offer it to them. Anytime people go out on a ride in any of our bikes, or they come back from a rental, we're wiping down the bikes and all the touch areas, okay? And so we're trying to keep people safe. We were starting in the first week or two putting our maintenance tickets out on a table outside the store, and then having them call our mechanic or myself in the store, and then we'd take the bike at the doorway, and people didn't need to come into the store. And so as things kind of settled down, we're not doing that as much. But I tell you what also we're doing that's very different was we're going out to different neighborhoods and developments, like, let's say, Saddlebrook Ranch, or the Highlands up by Dove Canyon. We're getting calls for people that want us to come out with a couple, 3 bikes for them to ride. And we'll pack, 4 or 5 bikes into our van, and I'll go up, and they've got maybe a neighbor or two that are ready to ride bikes, and they're not willing to come into the store, but, we're social distancing. I've got my mask on, and so I've got my wipes, and so they ride a bike around the neighborhood. They're pretty well qualified. They're just looking to see which model they're going to get. And while I'm there, our van draws attention, and so other neighbors come by, and so I'll book another visit, later in the week with another group of people. And so we're seeing some of the older seniors that are in these developments wanting to have us come out, and so we're doing more of that right now too.
Oh, that's great. That is just so great. You were able to kind of adjust maybe your sales and business plan to help people feel more comfortable and actually get your name out there. That's wonderful. I also never knew there were so many different types of electric bikes and why someone would use one. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Connecting Tucson with Jamie, where we focus on connecting our community, local businesses, and organizations to help our community grow and thrive. As your local insurance professional for all of your insurance needs, I know how important it is to make new and lasting connections in our own community right here in Tucson. You never know how a connection will create a spark or perhaps pull you in a unique direction. If you're a small business owner or involved in a community project and you'd like to be featured on the show, please feel free to give me a call. All of my information is located on TucsonBusinessRadioX.com, and I would just love to hear from you. We were just talking with James, the co-owner of Pedego Electric Bikes Tucson and Mount Lemon, a wonderfully unique business for many different situations and helping people become more empowered and confident to maybe take charge of their surroundings and get out and try a new experience. So, James, one of my friends actually recently purchased one of your bikes, and this was the person who told me about you. I'm not going to mention your name, but you know who she is. She was looking to get back into shape. She was a little bit hesitant, but she loved to bike and couldn't really pump or handle the hills anymore. And you mentioned that this is a good reason for people to maybe try out Pedego because it is the pedal assist. Why would there be other reasons for people to use the electric bikes, or what situations do you find people using e-bikes?
Well, in her case, and there's several other stories that just come to mind, people haven't been active for quite a long time, and they like being outdoors. They're just looking for some kind of experience to get them different places, and so the electric bike is a perfect way to do that. And what we find is people feel liberated once they start riding the bike, and after a couple of rides, they feel a little more confident now that they can ride a bike and not get so tired out, and they can conquer the hills. They get a series of confidence, and they feel liberated, and so they're not just riding for pleasure anymore. They start thinking, well, wait a minute. I'm going to my doctor appointment. Let me look to see if I can get to my appointment, and I'd rather ride my bike. And they start putting two and two together. And then one of the fun things we have as a customer is a worldwide Pedego owners group. And I hadn't mentioned it, but we've got Pedego stores around the world. It doesn't matter if it's Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, South Africa. We've got them all over the world. We're just a little bit bigger in the U.S. than other parts of the world. But we'll see stories of people around the world in our worldwide Facebook owners group. It's a closed group. And I've seen your friend on that particular Facebook page, and she's a perfect example of someone that has so much fun on the bike that she doesn't do it a couple, 3 times a week. She's almost on her bike every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
I see the Facebook posts.
So her world has gotten opened up, and she's going to places here in Tucson that she has never been before. Or maybe she's been on the road, and things look different when you're on a bike. You notice things, you smell things, you see things because you're going slower than in the car, and you're not looking at traffic. And it's just a lot more fun. And so we see this happening all over the place. And it's just not here in Tucson. People bring their bikes down to Sierra Vista, or, they're up in, North Oro Valley, or wherever. Southern Arizona is basically our store territory. But they rack their bikes and go out on trips to, let's say, San Diego or Las Vegas. And they're going all over the place with their bikes and just wanting to have more fun on all these new adventures.
Oh, definitely an adventure. You don't really notice things when you're in your car. You're kind of closed off, or maybe jamming to some music. You're not really taking in your surroundings. I agree with that 100%. Yeah. What has been your greatest surprise in developing your brand with the Tucson store?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Okay, so when we came into town, we set up our store, and Pedego as a company is really, really good at what they do. And basically, I'm a simple Norwegian. I mean, if you give me a set of instructions, I can normally follow them. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So the whole branded store process had been around for 7-8 years, and so I just wanted to do what worked and what didn't work. And that was all really clear and all kinds of fun. But our biggest detractor, which is really super surprising to me, were the road bikers.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm a road biker. I'm one of them. And I kind of cross over to both because I still like to work out and hammer on a bike and get my sweat going. I still like to climb Mount Lemon on a regular road bike once in a while, maybe once a year. But we, they, especially on the shared use path on the loop, they weren't welcoming in year 1. They've been much better in year 2 and year 3 as we've gotten started here. So that was a surprise to me. The biggest detractor being another bike rider, and that was
see.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected that either.
Yeah, and I guess the second biggest surprise is, geez, what's happened since COVID-19 mid-March.
Yeah.
We had no idea that the upswing in business would be like what it was, or even in the bicycle business. But that's just a byproduct of what has happened with people wanting to get back outside again, riding bikes, just getting back to basics.
So where do you see the e-bike industry going, and where you think Pedego is going in the future of this industry? Where do you think that's going?
Well, we only need to look to Europe. Europe has been about 9 or 10 years ahead of the U.S. in the electric bike business. And we've seen a big change in the last couple of years, just riding locally, seeing more bikes out on the shared use path, seeing more bike commuters now on Tanca Verde Road where I bike commute.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look in what Europe is doing, just last year, for the first time, they've of all bike rentals in Europe, and there's certainly a lot of bike rentals that people take, 1 week trips on a bike, but half of them are on an electric bike. And we have nowhere near those kinds of numbers here in the U.S. Last year was the first year that the Netherlands, which of course that's like bike nirvana as a country, right?
Mm-hmm.
They sold more electric bikes last year than regular bikes.
Wow.
So if you take a look at what's going on in Europe and just kind of look at where the U.S. is now, 9 or 10 years behind, there's a stat I read the other day that by 2025, in just 5 years from now, the e-bike business will be a 24 billion with a B industry. So,
well, you heard it here first, folks. Get into the e-bike industry before it hits the big boom. Now, you did mention that you opened up a second store on Mount Lemon. What's the major differences between your location at St. Philip's Plaza and the one in Mount Lemon?
Okay, one of our customers that had a couple bikes that retired up to Mount Lemon put the bug in their ear to, hey, why don't you guys go up there and use your bikes? It's 25 degrees cooler. You're pedaling amongst the pine trees, and there's all kinds of hills, and the Pedego bike just climbs hills like a homesick angel. Why not go up there? I said, well, wait a minute. Let's think about that. And so my wife and I and our mechanic Jesus, we thought, how could we do this? So what it is, it's not a full-blown brick and mortar store. It's a day kiosk, if you will. And so one of the things so Amazon has really changed retail and your buying experience, and what's been proven. And our co-founder and our CEO has been on the leading edge of doing just the right things with retail. And one of them is to get out and just look at new experiences. And so what we're trying to do is create a rental experience or a tour up there on an electric bike, climbing the hills, descending the hills, having fun, getting out to more than just the quarter, half mile that you're walking around between restaurants up there, and seeing the beauty of Mount Lemon on a bike, on an electric bike, because you're going to be climbing hills. So what we do is we pull out our rental bikes out of a storage unit, and we set up for the day outside because it's beautiful. And at the end of the day, we put all the stuff inside our storage container, and we do the same thing the next day. So from Thursday through Sunday, from 10 till 6, we're located right next to the general store on the same side of the street as the Sawmill Run restaurant, and you can rent bikes from us up there and pedal around on the top of a 8,000-foot mountain.
Wow, that is phenomenal. I'm definitely looking up that one. Now, it's very interesting. It's clear you love what you do, and you're having fun while you're doing it. But what is your favorite part about owning your own business and being a part of Pedego?
Well, I was 30 years in aerospace and had a lot of fun, did a lot of different things, lived in different states after growing up in the Twin Cities area. But I really wanted to my own thing. I wanted, I'm somewhat entrepreneurial. There was a couple of things that my wife and I had tried, but I was always envious of these people that were doing a passion for their profession, and so I was praying to the Lord to deliver me something like that. And for 2 or 3 years, I still had those prayers until one day I ran across a banner ad in social media. It said, "Own your own electric bike store." I said, "What?" And so I clicked on it. One of the only banners I've ever clicked on. and the nearest store was Pedego Scottsdale, and we had been up in Chandler. And that next morning, I went into Pedego Scottsdale, and Kathy and Bill run that store, she was in that day, and she said, started asking me about bikes. And I said, I'm only here, and told her that I'm looking to get a store. And so she was good for the next hour. We went across the street, got on a bike, and from the first 10 seconds I was on the Pedego bike, I knew that this was an opportunity that was not just going to go somewhere, but I'd have a lot of fun with it, and my wife as well. And so, I came back to her that day and that afternoon. I said, honey, what do you think about this? And I plopped down the magazine catalog. She goes, what's that? And so, oh yeah, it's just me with my other, great ideas on whatever. And so we went to Southern Cal to the main headquarters. And for the first half hour of the day, our co-founder and CEO spent time with us, very genuine guy, talking about the industry, talking about the opportunity. And then they showed us all the products and all that. So anyway, that's I'm trying to remember the original question, but somewhere in there.
No, that's perfect. Now, is there anything new and exciting coming our way we should be on the lookout for, either with your store or Pedego?
Yeah, there's a particular app that the company has built, and we're going to do it for the first time up in Mount Lemmon, but it's a self-guided tour. Oh. And you download the app, GPS-based. We've got a wearable, very lightweight speaker to hang from your shirt. And as you pedal around on a prescribed route, it's going to talk to you and give you updates based upon your GPS position where you are on that tour.
How unique.
Yeah, and so we're going to, cut our teeth on our first tour up there, and then we're going to do that for our Tucson location for this October when we start getting into high season in Tucson on a couple of different tours basing right at our store and going east or west on the Rito River Parkway. So that's something new. We've got a new model that is coming out in September. I don't want to give it away, but it's a fantastic model at a new price point, and it's going to be here and ready for the fall and winter, Christmas season. And our first Class 3 bike, which is our hardtail Ridge Rider, it's actually the same patroller that police and sheriff departments around the country. There's at least 20 different police departments we know that are using our Ridge Rider in their bike patrol. And they'll be able to go up to 28 miles an hour and catch bad guys with the bike. But
we're going to see you guys on cops.
Yeah.
I love it.
All kinds of leading edge new stuff. They try not to tell the store owners too much because we're too busy selling what we have right now. But we're just supported so well from the home office in terms of marketing, in terms of technology, the support. The text that we call in on questions and trying to get help within 2 or 3 rings, they're answering the phone. We're talking to live people. We get parts within 2 to 3 days, and so all kinds of
rare. It's so rare to find a company that supports you like that, and I'm so genuinely excited for you and the opportunity. And I honestly can't wait to come by and take a bike out for a spin, maybe either at the St. Philip's Plaza, but probably up in Mount Lemmon. So one of these days, actually, you're right down the street from me, so I'm probably going to have to come by and say hi at St. Philip's Plaza and test you guys out. So
I'm surprised we didn't have you over here before we did this podcast. Jamie.
I know. Well, I was there, but I think I missed you, and I spoke maybe with your wife.
Yeah, Rochelle. So Rochelle, she's kind of our purchasing manager, admin person. She does all of our accounting stuff and all the stuff, back office stuff that Jesus, our mechanic, and I don't want to do. We want to be on the floor working with people. And then she's able to, through COVID-19 here, she's been working out of her home because we would live with her mother, and we care for her out of her home and keep her protected. And but she loves. Very important. So as someone that does all the cooking for us when we come in from a really tough day and a busy day at Pedego, she's part of the team because she's doing all the cooking for all the meals at night. So that works out really well.
Well, James, you're going to have to tell her hello from me and that we actually finally met up. But that's all we have for Connecting with Tucson with Jamie here at the Stewart Title Studios. If you like the show, let us know. You can find all of the social media links for today's information for Pedego right on TucsonBusinessRadioX.com, Connecting Tucson with Jamie. As always, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and make a new connection. You never know where it might lead. Until next time, this is Jamie Overturf with Farmers Insurance. Keep on making unique connections, Tucson, and have a fabulous day.